Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I've got the pleasure of being joined by Fred and Abid, and we're gonna have a hopefully really interesting discussion about one of the pilot projects that EHAB did up in northern Canada. So I'll introduce myself. We'll all introduce ourselves, and then we'll each kind of take a little bit of time to talk through our part in the pilot. But then we're going to open it up for discussion as well. And please feel free to put questions in the chat. We'll be keeping an eye on the questions in both the chat and the Q&A. So, for example, if whilst I'm talking, you want a specific question about what I'm talking about, then Fred or Abid will jump in and interrupt me, and I'll do the same for them as well. So please, yeah, feel free to throw in questions as we go. Or if you think it's something later on, then we'll have time for questions at the end. So my name's Josh. I'm the founder and CEO of EHAB. We're a tech business based in the UK, but we now work across North America, the UK, Europe, and what we really care about is weather modeling. So we specialize in weather modeling and analyzing construction schedules to help companies to identify optimizations, identify risks, and basically just have better project controls. So that's me. I'll pass over to you, Abid.
Yep, my name is Abid Donesi. I'm a senior risk analyst at Pomerleau in Canada. So I'm also doing some quantitative risk analysis, like using Safran, using different tools. And welcome, everybody.
And Fred.
Is it my turn then? Yeah. Hi, my name is Fredrik Dahlberg. I'm representing Safran here. And I'm stepping in today for Glenn Jarrett, our managing director, who couldn't make it, unfortunately. But I am the product owner of our risk analysis tool called Safran Risk. I'm also a lead developer on it. And that's me.
Thanks, Fred. Yeah, thanks, Abid. Save all your technical questions to the end for Fred, okay? I will share my screen then and just introduce the pilot and what we've got up to, and then we'll get into it. So just going to share my screen just to kind of highlight a little bit. And sorry, Fred, I didn't get your photo onto the home screen, so apologies for that. But I think the reason we all kind of get why we're here is that weather is changing. So, and this is the reason for the pilot really in kind of the 2000s leading up even to about 2020. A lot of the data suggested 50% of projects were suffering delay due to weather. And what we're now seeing, literally data from last year in 2024 showed that about 93% of projects were facing weather challenges and delays. So I think, intuitively we all get that weather's been a problem in the past, but it's something that is changing pretty drastically. And in that same time frame, we've seen projects get about 8.4% longer because of weather down days. So there's just inherently more risk, weather risk that's happening. And I think the scary part is it's that extreme delay. So we've all seen extreme weather events happening all around the world. Some of you may have unfortunately experienced them. So that's risen by significant margin. So this is kind of the backdrop to why we did the pilot and why we're working with these guys from an EHAB perspective. And I think we also all get that there's an implication of a delay. So a lot of those people that from that same survey were suggesting that their project was being delayed. It's obviously resulting in some sort of implication for their business as well. So higher costs or financial penalties of some kind. And I think that clearly that's very bad. That's very bad news when, like in construction, the margins are pretty thin. So I think being able to be better at weather and risk management is really clearly critical for any business that's operating in this evolving environment that we are all living in. And I think today what often is happening. So I'm going to talk through some of the findings that we've found as we've worked with clients, and then we're obviously going to show the amazing way that Abid and his team did work on this pilot, but it's often very gut feel. So more often than not, people are just adding time risk when there maybe isn't such an idea of if it's accurate or not. It's just something that you've maybe, I've experienced projects in this location in the past, so this is what I think makes sense to put into your schedule from a weather risk perspective. And it's often wrong, of course, because weather can be very changeable, and so there's this kind of reactive nature to a lot of these things, and everyone does it slightly differently. So there's a real inconsistency in the way that people apply these things, and this just means that when you're looking at a schedule, you're not necessarily gonna, there's not one set way, so you're not going to be able to necessarily interpret it in the same way on different projects on different days with different planners. So I just wanted to ask you, Abid, I know I'm presenting right now, but before EHAB, do you mind just sharing how you guys at Pomerleau were doing weather risk in your kind of schedules, if you don't mind just sharing?
Yeah, I'll take you through history, maybe like about this journey of this pilot project. So before, like we use like traditional like deterministic calendars from P6 and build it on the Safran. So Safran for sure will give you the opportunity to make more sophisticated calendars. So that's give us additional like step ahead. But for us, it wasn't enough. Like it is like a quite obvious weather is like major like stakeholders for any projects. But for Canada, it's not only major, it's key like stakeholders that's affecting our projects in cost and in planning and the scheduling. So that's why we like decide to look around, find more like tools that give us more precise information, more like the accurate data to build our schedule, to build our cost, to build our strategy of implementation. So it start from there, and so I can go maybe start my presentation, just give you some ideas about background of our like Pomerleau history, like because that's the basis for innovation. Because if you don't have this, I mean, basis for innovation to accept new ideas and new, I mean, technology, it will not let you if you don't have this, I mean, the basis and the circumstances. So Pomerleau actually is one of the major construction company in Canada, and it's located in all cities of Canada, major cities. Like we have projects all over Canada from coast to coast, more than 200 sites. And we have projects like design, build, and public-private partnership, and building, infrastructure, civil engineering, and major projects was using collaborative models. So Pomerleau is leading Canadian construction company with a rich history and a strong commitment to innovation and sustainability. We're using like innovation on almost 70% of our projects. And our project that we implement, the pilot project was in northern Ontario, and it is located near like lake of Hudson Bay and James Bay. And the project basically is hospital. It's belong to, the name of the project is Winnipeg Area Health Authority redevelopment project. Call it WAHA. And it's contained like two part of the project. Like one is Mosinee mainland, which is have a main hospital, long-term care, staff accommodation, and hostel. And the other part is Mosinee Factory Island is care centers. And the nature of this project, that's the challenge, was in his location. The location is north of Ontario, is very remote area, And we have challenge with the weather impact is very short window for implementation, and the cost of the on-site labor, because you have to move your labor to be on site, and the material delivery is also was a challenge for us. So that's our, I mean, the driver for to think about finding solution, finding tools to give us more precise data to build our schedule, to build our strategy for implementation. And as you see here, like from this location, like the two part of the projects. So the only I mean, access to that area was through like air or through trains or ice road, which is available in short term, and material transportation only through this access. And so from this location, you can see how it is challenging and how it is hard to deliver this project. So as a risk team, we start our involvement from early stage with RFB to like help our management to find the best way to deliver this project. On design stage, we start design the project and make sure that's choosing the material which has less impact from weather, and build it on outside of the site and transport this material to the site. So that's the driver, that's the condition was, and we start looking for tools, and we use like Safran, but it wasn't enough. I mean, it gives some data, but it's not enough. We start looking for another alternate, additional, I mean, tools, which is we find it in EHAB, and we start working with the EHAB, and it wasn't easy task, because it's something with this new for us, and integrated with Safran, it wasn't easy first stage, but after like many try and many research and works, we got to have good result and good output from this integration, and to give our planning team good vision about what are days and where on each trade. So we have threshold for each trade, and we build the models inside Safran. So that's basically what we have done in this project. And back to you, Josh.
Yeah, thanks, Abid. That's a really helpful overview of the project, and I think I can now a little bit focus in on that piece you mentioned around the back and forth and figuring out, because I think, especially on this project, it's really important to get the thresholds right, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So that Abd and the team were using is called WeatherWise, which is the EHAB main platform. And we're lucky to say that it's actually the leading platform for weather risk in the built environment. The data that we have underlying it, which I'll explain in a second, but is when we've done back testing, is about 94% accurate, even multiple years into the future, which is really, obviously, when you're looking at the type of project that Abid just mentioned, getting as much confidence as possible in the schedule, in meeting various milestones, is obviously really important. And so the underlying data, obviously, it's quite a remote location, but our model has about 50 years of data with 11 different weather types at about a 5 kilometer or 3 mile granularity. And of course, this is global, right? So the way that we can get information at such remote locations is because we don't just look at weather stations like maybe a more traditional approach would be, but we also factor in about 60 different satellite sources. So this just means that you get much better coverage around the globe, which again, obviously for this remote location is really, really fundamental. And we also look at what the local weather patterns, what are the trends. So of course, we all know weather patterns are changing. And so we make sure that those get included into that underlying data set as well. And like Abd was just mentioning, we assign risk thresholds to all of the different schedule activities in the schedule. So this hopefully image can kind of demonstrate to you how we do this. And this is some of the bit that was trickier. So you might have an earthworks activity, and it might be that it is impacted by rainfall of a certain amount, and also temperature, for example, and some other things as well. You can assign lots of different weather thresholds to an activity, because what we want to know is, well, how does earthworks get prevented by the weather from happening? I mean, of course, you'll have other activities as well. So lifting might not be as affected by rainfall, but it obviously will be affected by wind speed. And perhaps there's lightning strikes or other things that are going to be a risk that you would assign to this as well. And of course, all your other activities, you want to basically have this type of thing mapped. The challenge here was understanding, because of the different kind of trades and different people working on the site, what their thresholds were. Because of course, EHAB provides a default set of thresholds, which we think are pretty common. So for example, 3 degrees for concrete, it is fairly standard. But of course, it's up to you as the user, as up to Pomerleau, to kind of change that and configure that to be as appropriate for the project as possible. The way that we then assigned that was using activity codes. So you can also use UDF fields, and we have some matching tools in the system. But effectively, each of the activities in Abid's plan had a category or an activity code, and that meant we could map to that code the risk category within EHAB. So that's how we assign and define how the activities are being impacted by weather, both from the schedule and then in the EHAB system. And ultimately, it's this information that is then used in EHAB's model to ultimately generate the probabilistic calendars that go into Safran. So that's the link there, is that you do the work in EHAB to kind of match and model and understand the impacts. And of course, there are dashboards and different things that help you interpret that information. And then once you're satisfied that you've got something that you're happy with and is reasonable, then we can then import that into Safran using probabilistic calendars. And obviously, we'll go into a bit more detail on how you do this in a second. But I think at a high level, what we're effectively doing is giving you kind of, instead of what you might see as a traditional calendar where you block out a certain number of days per week. So just as a very high level example, I'm sure Fred will go into more detail, and we'll discuss this in a bit more detail. But a high level, instead of saying there's going to be 1 day lost per week, we're giving you a range of how many days are going to be lost per week. And of course, each week or each month or each time period, I think in Safran it's daily, as Abid and Fred will show you in a second, but you have a different probability of impact. And so that's the important piece, is that as the QSRA is running, there will be a different impact from the weather, given the rules that you've defined, given the data that has been downloaded, and given when your activities are happening. So really the objective of this pilot and of EHAB in general is to try to make this a simple process that can be used business as usual. So of course, as Abd mentioned, the first time you do it, it's not going to be as simple. But I think now users in the business like Abid can basically get confidence from being able to do this on an ongoing basis, now that once you've done the process a couple times. So I'll stop sharing my screen there, actually. And Abid, I don't know if I want to hand back over to you to continue basically how you guys utilize that data.
Yeah, sure. I'll because I don't think we have enough time to demonstrate how we done it. It's a long process, but yeah. So we identify the threshold for each trade, and we mapped in the Primavera, we did special code and which activity will be affected by which trade. and then we import the B6 to EHAB website to like model it on in your tools, on your like in your process, and in EHAB like they do the models and they do the mapping as well. So then we import it to back from EHAB like application back to Safran. So first we import the calendars, and then we like import the schedule. I mean links like the risk register, and then the mapping also. So it's back and forth. Like you import the calendar and then you import the risk register you from Safran to EHAB application, and then you get it back, and then you do the mapping, and you import it to EHAB, and then you get it back to Safran. So yeah, the only thing like it was, this process is a little bit take time. It was because the file was heavy in the early stage when we done it, but now I think they improve it, and now they have more easy access to that to these files. And when we import it then to Safran, we run the simulation, and they'll show you before they do simulation, you have to assign each create risk based on that calendars. So it will be assigned automatically by like EHAB applications, and we run the simulation. It's very simple and easy. And yeah, so what's the beauty of that? I mean, that's output. That gives us the opportunity to resequence the work, see where the impact most, and see if we have alternative strategy for implementation, or for accelerating some work, or maybe we have some work to postpone it to some time because the risk was high. So instead of do it now, we can do it in the next season. So that's give a lot of information for a planning team on or building the schedule, building the implementation plan. And also on transportation, when we have like this material arrived on site, so which date, which time, also we can give the date, the most suitable date, and for laborers to be on site, because most of the labor will be in the camp on the site, and it's gonna be very costly if we keep the labor for long time on the site. And so we manage based on this information to give the most effective, I mean, way to manage this project. Yeah, I think. Yes.
Did you have a screenshot of the calendars in Safran?
Yes, I do have it here. I'll share it with 1 minute.
So I know Fred's probably going to talk about that in a slightly more.
Yeah. So basically, this slide is show only. So you can see it here. So here the calendar from Safran, how it look like. So after we distribute this, this calendar, so you can see where 100% is that's mean downtime, where we can't do anything, and this, for example, for rainfall, like so this mean 100% gonna be 10 millimeter day rainfall. So we can't do any work which is affected by rains. So that's the days where we have the most, like 100%, or some days we can have less than that, like 50%. And and all these date, I mean, the weather data is based on the historical data, which is coming from EHAB. So it's not only assumption. Like before, we do just assumption based on experience, or some people like doing research online, find some data. But here we have historical data for long time, for many years, and we build it based on that. Like it's same approach with using in design, like for storm management, water management. So it's always we have this data for 50 years, 100 years, and build our design based on that. So we are using same methodology to building our weather calendars.
And I think the important point, Abid, that I was thinking about was that, again, traditionally calendars have been built, haven't they, in a way where, like you just showed on the screen, where it's kind of one weather threshold. Mm-hmm. The beauty of what we were doing was that we were combining snow and rain and wind into one, so that rather than it necessarily being one weather threshold and what's the probability of this, it's the combination, right?
Exactly.
Which again, I know people, when they've tried to do it themselves, they've kind of said, well, when is a rainy day also a windy day? And kind of, you have to, like you said, make a lot of assumptions about if a rainy day and a windy day are the same or different.
That's true, because in traditional, like deterministic, some planners, like they just throw assumption, and this block half month or like 20% of the month, and that's it, make it non-working days, and they block the 20% of the month based on their assumption. But that's make not reliable information, and misleading the schedule, and give you like a lot of false result, and delaying the project. Like when we running the like Safran simulation, for example, we do probabilistic like analysis, and it gives us a lot of delays. So when we do like some investigation and forensic, what they call it, research on the schedule, you find a lot of this calendar, which is driving the project for many days of delays, which is nonsense. So then we do like some calendars on Safran, and with our like weather calendars, and it will give a different result for sure. So it's more reliable, more like information which makes sense, like when we're running our simulation.
Yeah. Well, I think, Fred, this is where I know we've mentioned, haven't we, that obviously the importance of the data going into Safran is what's going to create the reliability, right? So maybe we can hand over to you to kind of talk through that a little bit, and we can open up to a wider discussion. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good, Josh. Then we can do that. I mean, of course, the data going into the model is extremely important for the outputs, of course. We are familiar with the garbage in, garbage out concept, I'm sure. So I thought I could just share my screen and just talk a little bit about Safran Risk, the tool, and Safran, the company, to start with. Just a quick intro. So Safran, it's a Norwegian software company. It was started in 1997, actually. And for most of the time since we started, the main product has been a product called Safran Project, which is a scheduling tool similar to P6, really. But in 2014, they decided to venture into the risk world, and the development of Safran Risk was started. And me and Glenn, who couldn't be here today, and a couple of others were involved. And quite a few of us were actually coming from development teams of another tool that's called Perpmaster, which was developed in England some years earlier. It's now known as Primavera Risk Analysis. So yeah, in 2014, we started development, and then 2015, in April 29th, we released the first version. So that's almost about 10 years ago now. So we're actually celebrating our 10th anniversary next month, actually. So yeah, after we basically had the first version out with all the usual stuff, we had our risks and uncertainty, and we could run the normal risk analysis on the schedule. We sort of directed our attention to like weather modeling. Of course, we all knew that the weather is like has a big impact, of course, on project success in many parts of the world. And we also had some experience of trying to develop tools for this earlier, and we knew that existing tools were not perfect. Basically what you can see here is the home screen of Safran Risk. And yeah, it's just quickly about the tool. It's got these tabs at the top, which the idea of them is that they lead you through the process of risk analysis. So you start on the left and you move to the right, and in the middle you get to this analyze tab, and all the tabs to the right of that will be like the output reports. So you have your inputs here to the left and your outputs to the right. So that's pretty simple structure. And one of the first tabs that you might see is called risk calendars, which is just our name for probabilistic calendars. I guess we thought probabilistic was a too complicated a word. The risk calendars, as we call them in Safran Risk, they consist of what we call samples. So every sample is basically like a possible weather scenario that could be a couple of years into the future. So if I look at just one example here, which I named Ice Road. So this is basically a calendar that's telling you that there is you need access to this ice road, and it's only oh yeah, I'm just gonna see, so you can see January to December. It's a bit nicer like that. So this is an ice road that we can only use in wintertime. So you can see this the way this graphics work is that blue is downtime, so then you can't do what you're going to do, and white is uptime, so to speak. So what we're looking at here is actually the average of 1,000 samples, so like 1,000 different weather scenarios that has been created in Safran Risk. And we can look at these averages and can see that, like, yeah, on the 6th of March, we got a 9% chance of having downtime. But here in the middle of summer, we got a 100% chance of being in downtime because this ice road will be melted then. And we can also look at the individual samples by clicking up here. And so this could be, for example, 1 year, and this another. And you can see like how this ice road opens and closes at slightly different intervals. And just to show another example, we have one here that is trying to model like hurricanes in Florida, which will look slightly different. If you look at the mean, we can see that here the mean values are quite low, but still significant. So in July, for example, there's a 77% chance that you can't work on these dates here. If we look at the samples, we can understand how they calculate it. So here we have one example where I had 2 hurricanes in that year. Here's another, it's actually 3, right? 1, 2, 3, etc. So once you have like these calendars with the samples in, you can actually apply them to the activities that are like exposed to weather in your project. So the question then is like, how do we create these samples? How do we create these calendars? And there's 3 ways of doing it basically in Safran. One we call template, which is basically where you use statistical data such as like the average number of non-working days per month, for example, from like your statistics, and then you put them into like these tables, and we can create like these samples for you. Another way is to actually take real live weather data. So for example, you can have weather data from every day for like 30 years, for example. It could be like, for example, wind speed, wave height, wind direction, temperature, all of these things that Josh was talking about before. And then, of course, we need to convert these like weather things to downtime or uptime, because every activity is unique, right? So maybe an activity is that a ship needs to like move something from the shore to maybe an oil platform or something like that. And then it depends on the ship whether it can work or not, what the thresholds are. So maybe one ship can do like 3 meter wave height, another can do 4 meter wave height. So we were thinking in the beginning, should we actually let you input all these weather data directly into Safran Risk? and Safran Risk should be responsible for converting weather data to downtime. But we realized pretty quickly that there are so many ways of doing this, and we don't know or understand half of the ways. So we had to like leave this outside of Safran Risk. So you can then, for example, in Excel, convert like your weather data into like downtime and then import the downtime. So the risk analysis tool only cares about downtime. It doesn't care about why it's downtime or anything like that. It's just downtime or no downtime. So that's one way we support. We call it generate from time series. And then, of course, there is the third way where we let one of the users, then, for example, EHAB, create their own weather calendars in an even more advanced way. Like you can, for example, as Josh said, take climate change into account and trends and so forth. And this, we thought this is way too advanced for us. So we're going to leave that to the experts. So, but we then implemented the ability to create your own weather calendars outside of Safran Risk and import them here as XML files. And that's what EHAB is doing. And we're really happy that they're doing it with us. And it's very nice to see. So just to finish off, I can just show you what it looks like actually when you apply these weather calendars to a project. I think I have a little sort of sample project here. I had actually, okay, did I lose that? I had provided a layout where you could actually see which activities were affected by weather by changing the symbol here in the Gantt chart a little bit. But I see that I lost that now. But anyway, just for your information, there's three activities here. That one, and also one there. So 4 in total. They're all impacted by this weather calendar. So once you have this weather calendar, you actually create what we call a calendar risk here, and you assign that calendar to the risk. And you can see straight away here, you get like a little picture of the calendar, which tells you, okay, we have a lot of downtime in winter. So this looks right. This is about wind speeds over 15 meters per second. And then you can map this risk to the activities that are impacted by weather. So it looks like this in our risk mapping screen. So we can see if we click on this one, we see we have 4 activities mapped to that risk. So if we now run the risk analysis, let me just check one thing. I wanted to just make sure. Yes. Okay, that's good. So every iteration in the risk analysis, we then use one of the samples from the calendar and apply it to these activities here. And if we zoom in a little bit, we can actually see how the downtime is applied. And this was like about high winds, and then mostly happen in the wintertime. So we can see that these activities here, they're in May and June, they're not very affected by this calendar at all. But this activity here was delayed and ended up in October, November. And you see that it's a lot more delayed by this weather. So where you can see like these bars are thinner, that means that they have downtime and then no working is going on. And we can step through here and see how the different scenarios play out, basically. And you can see whenever this one is much earlier, it's less exposed to weather as well. So here, for example, happened in August, September. So hopefully that explains a bit about like how we do the risk calendars in Safran. I think that's about it for me, Josh.
Thanks, Fred. No, it's interesting because I think the key for all of this, right, and it's like what you were saying, Abid, is how do you, once you're set up and once you are using this, how do you make it something that's business as usual? Because I think that's the critical thing, is that as you said, there's lots of different ways you can do it. And it's probably about, as an organization like Pomerleau are doing, deciding, okay, we're going to do it in this way, and how do we make this a repeatable process that's easy to do. So I think that's the key, isn't it? And I mean, Abid, maybe you can just talk about like the importance of the thresholds and the consistency, because that obviously informs, Fred, doesn't it? Basically the samples that you were just showing. Like if you, let's say you change the wind threshold from 10 meters per second to 5 meters per second, of course the samples that are going to be
then you will get a
provided
lot more downtime in your samples if like that's your threshold 5 instead of 10. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, for sure. That the threshold, like it's depend of sometime construction code, like in the country where you are working, like they have some standardization for work to like, for example, to pour the concrete, the building code saying like you can't pour concrete if that's the temperature like -3. So you have to obey that, and it's becoming your threshold. Like if you want to pour concrete, you have to do other like condition to keep the concrete warm. So that's additional cost if you want to exceed that threshold. So the threshold is very important to build it in accurate way and make sure that you are like following the standards and the building code and also the circumstances of the place where you doing the projects. So and we added, as you know, Josh, we added to to the models and imported to your application. So in each trade, on each activity which is weather impacted, and yeah, sometime like you can exceed this threshold, but you have to do some additional work, and that's mean additional cost for that. And then you have here to make trade-off between cost and like delivery on time. So that's also adding, I mean, value for us to know what is our contingency if we want to deliver on time. You are muted.
Apologies. No, I was just going to say, I think there's two topics there that are quite interesting. And just so everyone's aware, we're now in the discussion phase. So, you know, we've got 15 minutes left. If you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. But we're just gonna keep chatting if you don't have any questions for us. But I think that one piece that you just mentioned, which is the contingency, Abid, which is of course when you're, as you were in this project, right? You're in the early phases. You're kind of trying to set up the project for best success at the beginning. Could you just talk a little bit about the importance of the contingency and having confidence in that number at bid phase?
Yeah, for sure. That's, I mean, the main output of the like our analysis, like for quantitative risk analysis for cost and for schedule, is to give precise contingency for the project, which is give the right number or most, I mean, accurate number to add it to the budget, overall budget of the project, and also study different approach, different strategy to deliver this project, and select what's the most suitable, like beneficial way to deliver the projects. So when we use like weather like calendar, for sure that's give us more precise information, more precise data about contingency, and instead just to use like deterministic calendars, which is give us like a lot of like not accurate information, and driving our contingency far away. So, but with this weather, I mean, calendar build and Safran coming from EHAB, so we now have more accurate, more precise information that's we can rely on this contingency and downtime that's we understand that's they're gonna face during the execution. So we build our contingency based on that.
Yeah, makes sense. And so Fred, the second part that I was thinking was quite interesting was, this is something that I know I didn't get much visibility on. I know Abid, you and Tarek and the team at Pomerleau were doing this, which was
Oh,
seeing what the difference of that information was. Oh, sorry, did you lose me?
Yeah, I lost you for a short while there. Yeah, you just.
Sorry. So I guess in summary, Fred, my question is thinking about this, doing this comparison of calendars when it's a pre-mitigated and post-mitigated. Have you heard of that use case? And just because I know that Abid and the guys found that really useful, so just wondered what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's quite a common use case to maybe create two different calendars for a pre and post mitigated scenario. I mean, you can even imagine, like in my previous example with a ship, like you might actually rent another ship that can tackle a higher wave height, and then you generate a new sort of risk calendar for that kind of wave height, and then you can compare and see how much you can actually gain by maybe hiring this ship that might be more expensive. And yeah, definitely, it's so we have like these pre and post mitigated scenarios you can set up on the risks in Safran, and then run like different versions of the analysis where you pick and choose like which risks you want to mitigate and which not, and then compare and see how much there is to gain from doing these kind of mitigations.
Perhaps next time we're running our webinar together, we can demonstrate what that looks like. I know the project was a little bit sensitive, so we couldn't share lots and lots of information.
Yeah.
But I think that's quite a nice use case. And I'm just seeing a couple of questions coming in. So there's a question here: how do you estimate the weather downtime days in the calendar? So just quickly from an EHAB perspective, and I think this should answer the second question as well from Diogo, which is the weather data that we get is from a global model, and it's about a 5 kilometer, 3 mile grid. So basically every square 3 miles, there is a different underlying historic data. And in EHAB, you set up the rules. So, how many inches of rain or how many degrees Fahrenheit will affect my activity. And using that, we then provide to Safran the samples. So we effectively say, here's the historic data against these thresholds, including climate trends. What should the downtime calendars be? And that part that Abid mentioned about importing it into and out of Safran a couple times was basically us linking so rather than having to match the calendars manually in Safran, we've created a flow where you provide the links so that we know which activities require which calendar. So it means you import a couple of files, but it just saves you quite a lot of time having to kind of manually click and match. You obviously can manually click and match in Safran yourself if you wish. So it depends on how many activities you have to match. But yeah, that's the flow that we have at the moment. I'm sure me and Fred and Abid can think of many ways to improve it, but for now it seems like it's a reasonably straightforward flow. Does that answer your question, Diogo, Nor? And if anyone else has questions, please chuck them in the chat. We've obviously got about 9 minutes left. I mean, Fred and Abid. Oh, we do have another question here. Okay, so we had to apply a fresh waterproof coating to a decades-old bridge. Our post-mitigated scenario involved an upfront investment in purchasing giant tents, preventing the rain spoiling the paint. So Safran would help with the cost-benefit analysis of risking the activity versus the additional cost of the tent. I think yes is the answer, Fred. No?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps we can, Abid, I don't know, perhaps we can have a little call ourselves and record maybe just an example of what you guys did on that project and share it with folks, or at least with a demo, some dummy data perhaps, to kind of illustrate and demonstrate to Chris how that works. But yes, I think, Chris, that's a perfect example of combining cost and time and data to drive better decisions, right?
Yep.
Do you want to, Abid, give just slightly more detail perhaps on on one of the examples that you did this on. I know you already touched on it.
Yeah. So the answer to the last question about additional cost for mitigation of waterproofing code. So we can for sure that in Safran you can do this like very easy, simple, like by doing a branching and doing what if like if this risk happens, so a trigger, and then you have to do some mitigation. So this mitigation cost will add it to the budget. So in in Safran you can get this information very easy.
No, that sounds good, Abid. I mean, does anyone have any other thoughts or questions? I don't know, Fred, if you've got any comments. We don't have to run all the way to the end. I think. I mean, do you want to say a last thing, Fred, from your side?
No, I just think it's been great cooperating with you guys at EHAB, and it's been great to see like that this functionality is being used in such a great way.
No, thanks, Fred. And Abid, do you want to kind of leave a final comment as well?
Yeah. I just want to thank you guys and thank you for all attendance who's showed the interest in this pilot project. So yeah, for sure that's something which is new and new innovation. We are at Pomerleau like always open for new ideas and new like thinking outside of the box. So like some company like they are very like cautious about adapting some new technology, new like models, but we are in Pomerleau like we are open our eyes always for something new, something innovative to improve the delivery of our projects and make it very efficient and on time and on cost and very like satisfy our clients. So the EHAB application, it was help us a lot in our project, in WAHA projects, and add value for sure, and beside the Safran software.
Yeah, exactly. I know I'll echo Abid's thanks for everyone who's attended. We'll of course be sending the recording to everyone. So any of your colleagues or who weren't able to watch, then please share it with them. And I think we can all agree that a data-driven project is going to be much better than a project that's kind of left up to gut feel, especially in these very uncertain times. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. Really appreciate your time, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Bye bye.
See you later.